Hi, Dennis Weiss. Welcome to our town. We're in the beautiful room at the Eisenhower Presidential Library today. Museum and boyhood home are over that way. Why are we here, Don Hammond, Executive Director?
We have some great news to share.
And that news is?
Well, what I want to share with you and our guests today is the model for our new exhibits.
I'm going to step back so we can get a wide shot of you and that model. That model is a little graphical representation of the words that we've been telling people about what exciting things are going to happen over in the museum.
Exactly, and it's beautiful.
Thing I saw, thing I looked for, so therefore I saw, is the first thing I want to touch when it opens next year. That's the things in the middle of the room, those visual opportunities to
I was
interact.
worried that I was going to have gloves for you, but you're okay. You're touching stuff you should touch.
I already did. Before the camera came on, I touched it. So we have a lot of work to do between now and then, but we're standing here. We want to remind people that the Eisenhower Presidential Museum as an entity is not closing for a year. We have exhibits here in this building.
Yes.
We're going to have traveling exhibits in our community. We're going to do outreach
and programming
full speed.
And the research room is available as always.
So the museum's the topic of the day.
Museum is the topic of the day.
Okay, we have a little model behind us. So we're going to take people through. We're going to let you take people through the museum one more time.
All right, let's see where we go.
All right, walk in the door.
Okay. So of course the facade of the museum is not changing. You will still walk in as we do today. The lobby is not changing per se. We are changing the intro desk where our frontline staff sit. And then we currently enter the exhibit space to the right, but in the new redesigned space you will enter to the left. So over here is where we begin the story of Ike's life.
Yeah, I look in and we see the pictures on the walls and statues of the people you're talking about, but we're walking people through the Eisenhower's life as we go through this museum. And the stages of his life, I guess.
Exactly, and so for this first, the first thing you see when you walk in will be a portrait of Ike. And it will change, it's a video portrait, and it will change. He's looking at you the whole time, and he morphs from a little boy to a young man, to an army soldier, to a president. So he's going to be watching you as you walk in.
I think that's fantastic. I cannot wait to walk in and have that experience myself.
It's great. It's great. And in this first gallery, we're talking about his life here in Abilene. We're talking about the family and how important the family was. We have a little table, and at the table we will have placemats, not really placemats, but placemats, which will give information on all the boys, the parents, and the grandfather.
In honor of that, I wore my boots and jeans today. This is Ike in Abilene.
Right, on his family farm.
Yep. So we're starting people into Eisenhower's life with him growing up here in Abilene, Kansas. We spend, I think, 15 minutes or 20 minutes in that room, and then suddenly one of the group's going to wander out. We're going to feel compelled to follow them. Right. And we're going to walk into?
The next section will be, of course, Ike's early military life, his life at West Point, his early postings. One of the things we did was we added these literal posts throughout the exhibit, and those will tell you where he's posted.
Really?
Yes.
That's a cool idea.
Right, and so, you know, this one happens to be, I can't read it, it's way too small, but let's say it says Camp Colt.
Yeah, that's about right in there.
Yeah.
Because I can tell by the big pictures.
So in that section, of course, we will talk about what he did at that posting. The other thing that's really important, don't forget, is that we're telling Mamie's life as well.
I see the Ike and Mamie very young picture there.
Right, because they met so early in his military career, of course.
Remind me, how old were they?
I don't know how old they were. 21, he was 21 or so.
Something like that? Yeah. Okay. All right, and I see one of the current exhibits over here. I see the automobile.
Right, of course, we still have the electric, the Dowd electric car, and that's a moment for us to really talk about the difference between their two families. Mamie, of course, from a wealthy family, all girls. Ike, of course, from a rural family of all boys.
So the Dowd electric car. That's a side story I don't know if we have time for, but we're going to do it anyway.
Well, okay.
So we always talk about Eisenhower being relevant. Electric automobile
Electric car.
inside the museum of Dwight David Eisenhower with the Dowd family car.
Well, one of the little things about the car that I like is that the seat swivels so that a lady can get out of the car without...
Very genteel.
Right, without raising her skirts to get in and out.
There you go. Very cool, very cool. So that's, we're walking through Ike's life here. So young boy went to the military. We're walking our way around his postings.
And this interactive table you're going to love. This interactive table right there is about Ike's mentors. Where was he? What were he and Mamie doing? And who were his mentors at that moment? So this is something where we'll be able to choose to look up more about Fox Connor or choose to learn more about their life in Panama or...
Oh my. You know, the Eisenhower Library has a education outreach. You and the foundation work together to prosper that program. So it's about young people. Wait till we see those young people touch those panels where they can learn two things: who Eisenhower's mentors were, but maybe most importantly, that mentors are a great thing to have.
I agree. He became the man that he eventually became, partially because of the people that he ran across and listened to and talked to and read with. And you know, these men, these mentors of his, were incredibly important to him. So
I went to a conference about a week and a half ago. It was talking about Kansas and talking about rural opportunities and problems, solutions. One of the things, the central theme, is reconnecting young people through mentorships, internships, apprenticeships, the thing that Eisenhower grew up in with Bell's Springs Creamery. So isn't it neat that you will be able to have exhibits that demonstrate that in the life of Eisenhower?
I agree.
Very cool.
I agree. So after you pass through his early military career, if you see on the floor of the exhibit space, there's literally a mark on the floor.
I do.
And this mark is the attack of Pearl Harbor. And so on the floor will be a clear visual demarcation of we're transitioning from one space to another, from one time to another.
Yeah.
So right here, we transition into the war.
He steps into a phase of his life in which he became one of the most important and influential people in the world.
Exactly.
Probably in a group of 5 or not more than 10.
Exactly. And we also have to put that into context, because not many people understand that the war was raging before Pearl Harbor.
Right.
So that's part of the story that we have to tell, that other nations were already embroiled before Pearl Harbor.
Are we going to get a sense of that as we leave this room?
Yes, right as we turn this corner right here is where we sort of say what's going on.
Okay.
We also have something that I'm personally excited about because I'm a history nut. We have these, in the museum world, we call them reading rails. So they're about this high, and they're in front of the cases.
Right.
And it gives you more information about what's in the case, right? Well, on top of the reading rails, in several sections, we will have a timeline so that you can put what was going on in the world in context, in a time context, with the Ike and Mamie story that we're telling in the time, on the reading rail.
That educational component, really, you and I talk about this almost every time we get on camera, but people learn in different ways.
Right.
But the opportunity for young people to have some relevance on time frame here is key to them understanding these issues.
Exactly. So, you know, so of course we'll have things like the Hindenburg, or the timeline hasn't actually been completely developed, but that's sort of the information that'll be there so that we can understand what else was going on while we're telling Ike and Mamie's story.
I think one of the cool things for me is, as we're moving into the phase of Eisenhower that I've spent a lot of time in over the years, is the opportunity to add material to the new museum format is going to be so much easier than it was in the old museum format.
It really will be.
Because of the integration of the digital pieces.
Absolutely.
That can be updated, can be added to.
Absolutely.
A reading rail is not going to be paper stapled to a board.
No,
right?
not at all.
So it's the opportunity to refresh that and add things that match what's in the glass behind.
And the new cases are going to be very adaptable, very flexible. So we'll be able to get in and out of the cases with much more ease and replace objects as well.
Okay, we're in the middle of probably the period of time of life that almost everybody knows something about Dwight David Eisenhower, and that's World War II.
So this table here will be a video projection of the war and how it was a world war, and perhaps the number of troops that were engaged at any given time. But over here, this small exhibit right here, this is, see, I'm pointing out all the stuff you're going to want to play with.
Thank you.
This is a video, digital interactive, where we will teach more information about the American Armed Forces as it builds up to World War II. Numbers of troops, numbers of ships, things of that nature. Also, what is going on the home front. What would you need to do for your victory garden?
Right.
And then finally, there's a quiz in this video that will ask you demographic information about yourself, and then it will tell you what you would have had to do during the war.
Isn't that interesting?
So if you're a 16-year-old boy,
gosh,
then you're looking for some military service.
Yeah.
But if you're my age, you're probably planting gardens and recycling metal.
Isn't that something? What a wonderful opportunity. So where is the D-Day table?
Okay, so you were looking for it, weren't you?
I was.
You go through this.
Okay.
This is sort of the build up to the war, Americans' beginnings of the American involvement. You go through this doorway and bam, there is the D-Day table.
Right there. You're entering the Hall of Great Decisions. If I keep saying that long enough, communications director, you think it's going to stick? She's not so sure. I am. I'm confident that 10 years from now, somebody will go, it's the Hall of Great Decisions.
Why didn't we name it that 10 years ago?
I don't know, but man, that table represents the weight of those decisions, but it also represents the greatness of the people who solve those problems.
Shocking, you should say that. There's another interactive in front of the table where we will discuss through the person's choosing to get more information, of course, who sat at the table, what was their agenda, what skills did they bring, how did they participate in this discussion as to how to plan the D-Day invasion.
Right. So my son and I watched a program on the megastructures of Germany. Okay, so Maginot Line, all of those things, you know, all of those, the Atlantic Wall, but the strengths and the weaknesses, those were what was on that table. Those obstacles were what were on this table, along with how do we pull all of these allies together into a coherent fighting force and actually land in Europe. I was watching that program, I'm thinking about this right here. And you put yourself in that seat for a moment, it makes today's decisions, today's problems look pretty easy to solve.
And I can't imagine the conversations that they had around those tables. I can't imagine the arguments or the different opportunities that perhaps they discussed.
Yeah, the brilliance of Dwight David Eisenhower, I think universally granted to him by people who study him, is his ability to deal with difficult people, difficult circumstances was out of this world ability to do that.
Agreed.
So that happened right there in this new exhibit.
You're right.
Okay, walk us on around.
Okay, so just past that, you see there's another theater here with the Mulberry Harbor. So in this theater, it's going to be a film that discusses the invasion. And then, of course, the supply of the troops via the Mulberry Harbor.
So those young people coming, those school tours that are coming, you're a school teacher, you want to pause there. And we talk about STEM education all the time. The engineering piece of that, Mulberry Harbor was something that never had existed before. This was a creation of people who saw a problem and sat down and solved it, built it in secret, towed it, deployed it, and it really was the linchpin to allow us to land and resupply. Agreed.
And you mentioned this is a stopping point for the classrooms. This is an excellent opportunity for us internally to re-evaluate, isn't exactly the right word, but redo our educational program so that we can go throughout the exhibits.
Yeah.
And to that end, we have demanded that there be some sort of a teacher interrupt to our film programs so that the teacher can stop it, we can have a moment to talk about it, and then the teacher can restart the film.
So I get to hear all of this, but we're brought the camera so they can hear all of this, right? But if you stop and think about the opportunities from what we have today, which is a great museum, to what we're going to have next year, which is a world-class learning experience.
Exactly.
And a still great museum.
Exactly. It's really a fabulous time.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
All right, so past D-Day, past the invasion, we of course talk about the war in general, the concentration camps, the ending of the war. The last thing you see in this gallery is Ike's quote of "I hate war as only a soldier who experienced it can." And that's a very powerful moment for us. Then you move into the presidency, the candidacy moment. There's going to be a component here where it looks like you're at a candidate's party, perhaps, where there's confetti falling and the "I like Ike" pins falling. I wore a different one and you didn't say anything about it.
I was waiting for the opportune time. But now that you have, I'll use your pen to talk about that statement right there. That's a picture of Ike as a soldier, and I see 3 stars on his shoulder, and that one, so he's younger, not 5. But how important is it that Dwight David Eisenhower said those words, and we recorded them, and they're on view in a story here at his library and his museum. The hatred of war is only a soldier can hate it.
That really gives me pause to think about it like that.
It should give us all pause to think about it. You can't doubt his word because he's Dwight David Eisenhower and he's wearing 3 stars there and he's 5-star general before he was through. And that's where he was when he said those words. The most knowledgeable man about war alive at the time said, I hate it.
True, very true. This gallery in the back is Mamie's gallery. We wanted to make sure we took a special moment to acknowledge what Mamie brought to the relationship. To the
hats.
We have a lot of hats, and they're beautiful.
Shoes.
And we have a lot of shoes, and they're beautiful as well. But she also brought some social diplomacy.
I'm hoping you were going to go there.
Yes. Yeah. She brought an elegance and but a hometown elegance to the White House. She was approachable. She was vivacious. So she wasn't a stiff Victorian that perhaps the first ladies were before her.
And rumor has it she's somewhere between 40 and 60% of the vote that Eisenhower got as president.
He knew. He said that she was a better what's the word? Campaigner than he was.
Or her appeal to the nation. Because these are the Eisenhower years too. That's when suburbia came, 8 years of peace and prosperity, probably your next room, I'm getting ahead of you. But the reality of it was that partnership and that vision was formed between Ike and Mamie back here in this early picture. But as Mamie turned into 8 years of the First Lady during those peace and prosperity, her importance to the nation is just as much as her husband's.
Absolutely, and one of the things that I'm sort of thinking about right now is how they were both perfectly situated for this job. You know, the postings that he had overseas allowed them to meet these leaders of other nations. So when they began their residence at the White House, they already knew. They already knew the Queen. They already knew the leaders of France. So they had not necessarily a camaraderie with everyone, but at least a knowledge and an understanding of who they were.
I think a cultural understanding was the words that are going through my mind, because that's very important.
Sure.
That not only you know that person, but you know who that person is, the culture in which they live, and so therefore you can have a chance of relating to them.
Absolutely.
I think they were great at that. History says they were. I don't think that. History says they were great at their jobs.
They were great at their jobs. You're right. You're right. Okay, so after we pass Mamie's gallery and the candidacy, of course, we're in the presidential gallery. The presidential gallery for this exhibit, let me say it a different way. We will use more than twice the amount of presidential space that we currently have in our current exhibits in here. So the presidency is going to grow.
You can see that in your mock-up here. This is a full view of the Eisenhower presidency.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so the first section will be his international agenda. His international concerns. So we have, I can actually see the part with communist advancement over there.
Right.
So what did that mean to America, that this was a possibility, and how did I deal with that? So in these sections, there's giant interactives where you can delve more into that topic as well.
Repeating ourselves, but that's what we do on TV. You just keep saying it, right? What an opportunity. So these things that lived in cases in the vaults, and then you move them out and in and out, in and out. That digital edition to learn more, even though this is the piece on display,
exactly.
The entire context is here on your reading rails. And I think that just, I don't know what it does to the factor of impact of your museum that you're in charge of, but it's going to be greatly enhanced.
It is going to be greatly enhanced, but the thing that I keep coming back to is a museum shouldn't be encyclopedic. You don't have time for an encyclopedic museum. However, you can delve more deeply into specific topics via these video interactives.
Okay, we have 3 minutes left.
How do we do that?
We're never going to make it through. So,
okay.
Right here.
We're going to the end?
The place where people will gather. You have two of them right here. So
right.
tell us what they are.
We do the international diplomacy and then the national issues.
Okay.
At the end, of course, we
civil rights.
Interstate system, NASA, yeah.
What became the internet? Said that quietly.
We'd say goodbye to him. There's a special section about his interment here in Abilene because that's really important to us. And then the very last thing is going to be a wrap-up theater where we just sort of highlight the things that we would like for you to learn before you leave.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant stroke. You bring people together, and it won't be the group unless it happens to be a tour group, but people will be gathering at that area.
Exactly.
There may be somebody from Canada, there may be somebody from Germany, there may be somebody from Russia, and there may be 6 kids from Abilene gathered on those benches. And to share that common experience is what the museum was put here for by Dwight David Eisenhower.
Aren't we so lucky that it's here?
We are so lucky, and I'm very lucky that you invite me to come down and let me do these things. I'm honored and
we love your
always
visits.
So happy to be here. Don Hammett, good to see you. Get to stand up, shake your hand today. Jeans, boots, why like Ike pen, the whole 9 yards. We're just in it to win it today, aren't we?
Right on.
All right. I'm Dennis Weiss. I work for Eagle Communications. We thank you for watching today. Don Hammett, we wish you a great day.